The grand hall of the Crystal Empire shone like a star in the heart of the Sky City. The ceiling was made of living glass that reflected every color of dawn. Rows of guards in silver armor stood tall, their faces calm and expressionless. The air smelled faintly of flowers and charged energy. It was not an ordinary day. The royal court had gathered to meet a visitor from a far and little-known world, Earth. Most of the nobles whispered to one another, thinking it was a joke. A human was asking to speak before the princess? Impossible. Princess Lyra, daughter of Empress Selene, sat upon the high throne. Her long hair shimmered like golden silk, and her calm eyes studied everything with quiet curiosity. Though young, she had learned early to hide her feelings behind a mask of grace. When the tall silver doors opened, the court turned silent. A lone figure walked in, Elias Trent, a human. He wore a dark blue uniform with small silver lines across the chest. His boots made a soft echo as he stepped onto the shining floor. He carried no weapon, only a small metallic case in one hand. Lyra raised her hand slightly, signaling the guards to relax. "You may come forward, Captain Trent of Earth," she said. Her voice was gentle but carried the strength of command. Elias bowed slightly. "Your Highness, it is an honor to stand before you." The princess studied him carefully. He looked different from the other alien species she had met. There was no glowing skin, no strange limbs or tails, no grand armor. Just a man, calm, human, and yet there was something deep in his eyes. One noble, a tall crystalline being, leaned toward another and whispered loudly, "So small, so fragile. I wonder if they sent him as a joke?" Laughter rippled softly through the hall. Even Lyra smiled faintly, not out of cruelty but disbelief. She could not imagine what a small planet like Earth could offer the Empire. Elias did not react. He simply stood tall. His eyes swept across the hall once before he said, "I come with a message and a proposal from my people. Humanity seeks friendship and peace with the Crystal Empire. Together we could build something stronger than either of us alone." Another noble laughed openly. "Peace? Friendship? What could Earth give us? We already have peace among 1,000 worlds." The princess looked at Elias with polite curiosity. "Captain Trent," she said, "you must understand. The Crystal Empire spans 6 star sectors. We command fleets that could cover the sky. Your Earth has, what, a few colonies?" "Yes," Elias replied simply. "A few. But each one stands because we refuse to fall." The calmness of his voice made the hall quiet again. Lyra leaned forward slightly. "You speak of strength," she said softly. "Yet you have no army that could match ours. Why should we take your offer seriously?" Elias opened the metallic case. A small glowing sphere floated upward and projected a hologram above the hall. Everyone's eyes turned toward it. The image showed a vast battlefield in space, thousands of ships locked in a furious struggle. It was chaos. Fires burned across metal hulls. Fragments of ships drifted silently. But even among the ruin, small human vessels were still fighting. Their engines flickered, their shields shattered, but they refused to stop. "This was the Battle of the Outer Rim," Elias said quietly. "We were outnumbered 10-1 by the Draken swarm. Every other race that faced them ran. We did not." The image changed. Human pilots shouting to one another, guiding damaged ships, pulling comrades from burning wreckage, using their own bodies as shields when the energy fields failed. They looked tired, afraid, yet none of them gave up. The nobles stared silently. Even the whispering stopped. Elias continued, his voice calm but strong. "We won that battle. Not because we were stronger or faster or richer. We won because we don't know how to surrender. We fight for every inch, for every life, for every hope." Princess Lyra felt her heart stir a little. She had seen many battles through reports and news across the Empire, but none like this. Most empires fought for control or pride. These, humans fought for survival, and somehow that made it more powerful. One of the elder advisors, a being made of shifting light, broke the silence. "Bravery is easy when you have nothing to lose," it said. "You speak of hope, human, but hope alone cannot win wars." Elias looked at him and smiled faintly. "You're right," he said. "Hope alone cannot win. But without it, no one fights at all." The words were simple, yet they filled the room like a rising wind. Even Lyra could not look away. She stood from her throne, her long robe flowing like liquid gold. "Captain Trent," she said slowly, "you speak with courage. But tell me, what does Earth seek in return for this friendship?" Elias bowed his head slightly. "Not power, not territory, just a place among the stars where we are treated as equals. We may be new to this great galaxy, but we have something no other species can offer." "And what is that?" she asked. He looked up, his eyes steady. "The will to begin again. No matter how many times we fall, we rise. No matter how dark the sky becomes, someone on Earth always lights a fire." The hall grew completely silent. For a moment it seemed the stars outside paused too. Then one of the younger nobles laughed nervously. "Beautiful words, but words are easy." Elias nodded slightly. "True. That is why I didn't come here just to speak. I came to show." He stepped forward. His boots echoed sharply against the crystal floor. The lights above flickered slightly as the hologram changed once more. Now it showed a small human colony on a cold planet. Children played under a broken dome while adults repaired it. The wind outside was harsh, but they smiled. They sang as they worked, building homes out of nothing. "This," Elias said softly, "is New Terra. It was destroyed twice. By storms, by war. But they built it again. Every single time." The princess stared at the image. Something inside her chest tightened. She had lived in comfort all her life. She had never known hunger, fear, or loss. Yet these humans lived with them every day and still smiled. She stepped down from the throne slowly. The nobles gasped softly as she approached the human. "You truly believe your people can stand among the great empires?" she asked. "I don't believe it," Elias said. "I know it, because even when no one else believes in us, we believe in ourselves." The princess stopped a few steps away from him. For the first time, she saw not a fragile creature, but something powerful in its own quiet way. She folded her hands behind her back. "Perhaps," she said gently, "this is not a joke after all." Elias gave a respectful nod. "It never was, Your Highness." The silence that followed was deep and thoughtful. Every noble felt it, the strange warmth in the human's words. It was not arrogance. It was not pride. It was something else, something they could not name, but could all feel. When Elias finally turned to leave, the princess called out softly, "Captain Trent." He stopped and looked back. "I will consider your words," she said. "But know this. The Empire does not easily trust outsiders." Elias smiled faintly. "That's all right. Humans never expect an easy path. We only ask for a chance to walk it." The princess watched him go, her thoughts spinning like the stars above. She had thought it was a joke. Now she wasn't sure anymore. For the first time in years, she felt something new, curiosity, and perhaps admiration. And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "Maybe this human will change everything." The next morning, the royal city floated under a soft, golden sky. The towers of crystal caught the sunlight and scattered it into colors that danced through the air. Ships passed silently in the distance, leaving trails of blue light behind them. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was different. Rumors spread quickly. Some nobles whispered that the human, Elias Trent, was foolish to speak of hope before the princess. Others thought he was brave, maybe even dangerous. Princess Lyra sat quietly in her private garden, her mind far from peace. The gentle wind moved through the glowing trees, carrying the sound of the city below. She replayed the words Elias had spoken, "We rise again. No matter how many times we fall." Those words would not leave her. Her advisor, Lord Kalin, approached, his tall crystal body shimmering with faint blue light. "Your Highness," he said respectfully, "the Council awaits your decision." Shall we send the human back to Earth? His proposal is unrealistic. Lyra looked at the flowers before her. They were beautiful but artificial, grown from light instead of soil. Do you think he lied, Callan? She asked softly. Callan hesitated. Humans are known for exaggeration. They speak of courage, but they lack the power to match it. I do not believe he meant harm, but his presence is unnecessary. Lyra turned to face him, and yet his words made the entire hall silent. Even you did not speak. The advisor looked down, uncomfortable. He has passion, yes, but passion does not build empires. The princess stood slowly. No, but it can move them. She walked toward the open balcony, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Prepare a test, she said. If the human truly believes in what he says, let him prove it. Callan frowned. A test, Your Highness? Yes, she replied. A fair one. No tricks, no danger to life, but something that shows who he really is. That afternoon, a message reached Elias's quarters in the guest wing of the palace. It was short and polite. The princess requests your presence in the arena of reflection at the 6th bell. Elias smiled slightly when he read it. A test, he murmured. Of course. He dressed in the same plain uniform as before and left his quarters. The palace guards escorted him through long, shining corridors until they reached a wide circular chamber. The floor was made of smooth glass that reflected everything like water. The princess was already there, standing in the center with several nobles and her advisor watching from a distance. Captain Trent, she greeted. Thank you for coming. Elias bowed slightly. Your Highness, she looked at him calmly. Yesterday you spoke of humanity's strength and hope, but words can be beautiful and empty at the same time. So today I ask you to show me what makes your people different. Elias nodded. What would you have me do? Lyra gestured to the center of the arena. This chamber projects illusions, simulations of real events. They cannot harm you, but they will test your choices. You may stop it at any time. He smiled faintly. I'll do my best. She nodded to the controller beside her. A hum filled the air. The glass floor darkened, and suddenly Elias stood in the middle of a burning landscape. The audience disappeared. The smell of smoke and dust filled the air. He looked around. It was a ruined colony. Broken towers, shattered vehicles, flickering lights. A small beacon blinked nearby. Then he heard a voice. Help! Someone, please! Without hesitation, Elias ran toward the sound. The illusion was so perfect that even his boots left prints in the ash. He found 2 figures trapped under a collapsed wall, a man and a child. He tried to lift the debris, but it was too heavy. Sweat covered his forehead, though he knew it wasn't real. He looked around and saw a broken beam he could use for leverage. Working quickly, he shifted the weight enough for them to crawl out. Go, he said, breathing hard. Find a safe path. The image changed again. Now he stood before a damaged shuttle. The engines burned with blue fire, threatening to explode. A group of survivors shouted from inside, Leave it! Someone cried. It's going to blow. Elias ignored the warning. He climbed into the shuttle, sparks flashing around him. He pulled one pilot out, then another, guiding them toward safety. When the explosion came, he dove aside, covering a fallen engineer with his own body. The light faded, the smoke cleared, and suddenly he was back in the arena. The nobles stared in silence. Princess Lyra watched him closely. He was breathing fast, but his eyes were calm. The advisor stepped forward. Interesting performance, Callan said. But these were illusions. He knew they were not real. Elias turned to him. Maybe, but every choice we make, real or not, shows who we are. Lyra's expression softened. You didn't hesitate, she said. Not even once. Because hesitation costs lives, he replied quietly. And we humans have learned that lesson too many times. The princess walked closer, her golden eyes steady. Tell me, Captain, what drives you to risk so much for others, even strangers? Elias smiled faintly. Because someone once did the same for me. On Earth we live knowing that no one survives alone. If one of us falls, someone else reaches out a hand. Lyra stood silent for a long moment. The words touched something deep inside her. She had grown up surrounded by wealth, order, and control, but not warmth. The idea of fighting for a stranger, of caring without reason, felt strange and powerful. End the test, she said softly. The lights dimmed and the hologram shut down completely. The advisor stepped forward again. Your Highness, this proves nothing. The simulation was designed for emotional effect. Humans are emotional beings, they react, not plan. Lyra turned to him sharply. Sometimes emotion is what saves lives, Callan, not machines. Not numbers. He acted while most would have waited. Callan bowed his head. As you command. Elias watched quietly, saying nothing. He understood the tension in the air. Every empire feared something it could not measure, and humanity was just that, unpredictable but unstoppable. Lyra turned back to him. You said your people fight for every heartbeat, she said. Now I see what you meant. Elias nodded respectfully. We are not perfect, Princess. We make mistakes. But when we fall, we help each other rise. That's who we are, she smiled faintly. Then perhaps I owe your people a chance. The advisor looked uneasy. Your Highness, but she raised a hand to stop him. Prepare a small expedition, she said firmly.
Captain Trent will accompany our royal scouts to the border of the Nebra sector.
If his courage is as real as his words, it will show there. Callan hesitated, then bowed. As you wish. When they were alone, Lyra looked at Elias. This is not punishment, she said softly. But I must see with my own eyes if humanity can stand beside us. Elias smiled. Understood. You'll see, Princess. We don't back down. For the first time, she smiled too. Then I look forward to it. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lyra stood again on her balcony, watching the human ship resting in the royal hangar. It was smaller than any fleet vessel, older too, but there was something solid about it, something alive. Her thoughts drifted to the way Elias had moved during the test. No hesitation, no arrogance, only quiet purpose. She could not deny it anymore. This human was not like the others she had met in her life. Perhaps, she thought, humanity truly was something special. Far below, Elias looked up at the sky from his quarters. The stars of the Empire shimmered brightly above him, yet he smiled softly to himself. He knew that the real test had only just begun, and somewhere in the distance, among the glittering lights of the floating city, the princess thought of him again, with curiosity, respect, and something she couldn't yet name. The next morning, the royal hangar buzzed with quiet energy. Tall crystal ships stood side by side like gleaming towers, their engines glowing a soft blue. Engineers moved swiftly, checking energy cores and shield controls. In the center of all the activity stood a smaller, older vessel, the Aurora's Edge. Its hull was scratched, its design simple compared to the Empire's elegant ships. But it looked strong, built for endurance rather than beauty. Captain Elias Trent stood beside it, watching as supplies were loaded aboard. His face was calm, but his mind was alert. He knew this mission was more than an expedition. It was a test. Princess Lyra arrived soon after, dressed not in royal robes but in a light travel uniform of silver and white. The crew stopped to bow as she passed, but she waved them off gently. Her eyes fell on Elias, who saluted her with quiet respect. Captain Trent, she said, are you ready? As ready as a human can be, Your Highness, he replied with a small smile. She smiled back. Then let us see what humanity can do. Behind her stood Commander Arvin, the leader of the Royal Scouts, a tall, serious man with dark eyes and a voice that rarely softened. He looked at Elias with open doubt. The neighbor sector is unstable, Arvin said. Ion storms, pirate activity, and strange signals. If your ship cannot keep up, we will not wait. Elias met his gaze calmly. Understood. But don't worry, Commander. We've flown through worse. Arvin frowned slightly, unused to such confidence. Soon the small fleet of 5 ships rose from the hangar and sailed into the open sky. The great city grew smaller behind them as the golden clouds faded into the black sea of space. Stars stretched across the view like rivers of light. Lyra stood near the window of her command room, watching the stars slip by. Her heart felt strangely light. She had left the palace many times before, but this journey felt different, almost exciting. Her communication panel chimed. Elias's voice came through, calm and steady. Princess, our scanners show clear space for the next few light hours. I'll stay behind your lead ship and watch for any disturbances. Understood, Captain, she replied. Keep me informed. For a moment, she hesitated before adding, and thank you for agreeing to this mission. Elias chuckled softly. You're welcome, Your Highness. A challenge keeps the spirit alive. Lyra smiled faintly and turned off the channel, though her thoughts lingered on his words. Hours passed peacefully. The fleet glided through glowing clouds of cosmic dust, their hulls reflecting soft light. But as they approached the edge of the Nebra sector, The calm began to fade. Unstable readings ahead, Arvin announced from the main control room. Magnetic interference rising. Outside, the stars began to twist and blur. A storm of blue and red energy swirled across space like a living curtain. Lightning streaked silently between fragments of drifting rock. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered. "Beautiful," Arvin said. "And dangerous." Before she could respond, the communication screen lit up again. Elias appeared, his face dimly lit by his ship's monitors. "Princess, I'm reading a signal inside the storm. It's weak, but it's repeating. Distress code, Old Empire frequency." Lyra's expression changed. "A distress signal? From inside the storm?" "Yes," Elias replied. "It's possible a ship was caught in there. If someone's alive, they need help." Arvin shook his head firmly. "Impossible. No ship can survive that storm. The magnetic waves would tear any vessel apart. It's likely an echo, a ghost signal." Elias's eyes narrowed slightly. "Maybe. But humans have a saying, Commander, you don't leave a cry for help unanswered." Lyra looked from Arvin to Elias. She could feel the conflict rising between them. The safe choice was to leave. The right choice was uncertain. Finally, she said, "We'll investigate, but carefully. The Aurora's Edge will lead. Its smaller size might handle the storm better." Arvin's eyes widened. "Your Highness, that's reckless." She looked at him calmly. "Then it is my recklessness to command." Elias nodded once. "Acknowledged. We'll enter the storm first. Keep your distance until I send word." As the Aurora's Edge moved ahead, the storm grew wilder. Waves of color flashed across the viewports and static filled the air. The ship shuddered, metal creaking under the magnetic pull. Inside, Elias gripped the controls. "Steady," he muttered to himself. "We've seen worse back home." His co-pilot, a small spherical drone named Luma, floated beside him. "Warning. Hull integrity at 87%, it said in its soft voice. Yeah, just keep the shields balanced," Elias replied with a grin. "We're not done yet." The deeper they went, the stronger the signal became. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Finally, through the storm, a shape appeared, an old Imperial ship, half broken, spinning slowly. Elias activated his communicator. "Princess, I found the source. It's an old scout cruiser, heavily damaged but stable. I'm going in to check for survivors." Lyra's voice came through, calm but tense. "Understood, Captain. Proceed with caution." The human ship docked carefully against the wreck's airlock. The lights flickered as Elias stepped inside wearing a light exosuit. The air was thin, the corridors filled with floating debris. "Luma, scan for life signs," he ordered. "One faint signal ahead," the drone replied. Elias moved through the dark hallway, shining his wrist light along the walls. The place looked abandoned. Burn marks, shattered panels, and silence. Then he saw it, a stasis pod half buried under fallen cables. Inside was a young alien officer still alive. He worked quickly, pulling away the debris and connecting a power cable from his suit to the pod. The faint hum returned as lights blinked back to life. "Hang in there," Elias said softly. "You're going home." The officer's eyes fluttered open weakly. Who are you?" "Captain Elias Trent," he replied. "Human fleet." The alien blinked in disbelief. "A human?" "Yeah," Elias said with a small smile. "You're safe now." He carried the survivor carefully back toward the airlock as the wreck began to shake. The storm outside was growing worse. Back in her command ship, Princess Lyra paced anxiously. "Report," she demanded. "Still no signal from the human ship," Arvin said grimly. "The storm intensity is rising. If they don't exit soon, they'll be crushed." "Wait," Lyra said suddenly. The communicator crackled. "Aurora's Edge to Royal Fleet. I've got one survivor. Exiting now." Her shoulders relaxed with visible relief. "Open a path for him," she ordered. Moments later, through the storm's swirling colors, a small light emerged. The Aurora's Edge burst free, dragging the broken cruiser's escape pod behind it. Cheers filled the command room. Lyra's lips curved into a genuine smile. When Elias's ship rejoined the formation, she opened a channel immediately. "Captain Trent, are you all right?" "Mostly," he replied, brushing a streak of ash from his sleeve. "Just another day in space." "You saved a life," she said softly. "Anyone would have," he said. "That's what we do," but she knew better. Many would have chosen safety. He had not. Later, when the rescued officer was stabilized and resting, Lyra visited the docking bay. Elias was there, cleaning his suit near his ship. He looked tired but content. "You risked your life for someone you didn't know," she said quietly. He shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time," she smiled faintly. "You make it sound simple." "It is," he said. "Sometimes the hardest things are just simple things done without fear." For a long moment they stood in silence, the soft hum of the hangar around them. Then Lyra said, "Perhaps I was wrong about you, Captain Trent." Elias looked at her curiously. "Wrong? I thought humans acted without thinking. But now I see you act because you care." He smiled gently. "That's what makes us human, Princess." She nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. "And maybe that's what our empire has forgotten." When night settled across the fleet, the princess stood alone by the window of her quarters, watching the stars shimmer beyond the storm's edge. Somewhere out there, she thought, humanity was still fighting for survival, still hoping, still trying. For the first time, she understood why Elias's people were respected by none but feared by all. They could never be broken. And as she watched the tiny light of the aurora's edge drifting nearby, she whispered to herself, maybe the galaxy still has much to learn from Earth. The fleet sailed deeper into the Nebra sector. For the first time in years, Princess Lyra felt something more than duty. She felt alive. The rescue mission had changed the way she saw the universe. The human captain, Elias Trent, had proven that courage was not about power, but about heart. But the Nebra sector was far from peaceful. The storm had passed, yet strange readings continued to appear on their scanners. The crew whispered about ghost signals moving in the dark. Inside the Royal Command ship, Lyra stood beside Commander Arvin as the maps flickered with light. "Report," she said calmly. Arvin frowned. "Multiple energy spikes detected, Your Highness. They're moving fast, too fast for natural objects." Elias's voice came through the comm line. "I'm picking them up too, Princess." "Those aren't rocks. They're ships." Lyra's eyes widened. "Pirates?" "More likely scavengers," Arvin said grimly. "The Nebra storms destroy many vessels. Thieves come later to steal what remains." "But they're heading straight for us," Elias warned. The screen lit up, dark shapes emerging from the mist of space. Their ships were jagged, built from scraps of stolen metal. No symbols, no code signals. Just silent hunters. "Raise shields," Lyra ordered. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." Arvin nodded and began issuing commands. But the pirates moved faster than expected, surrounding the small fleet in a tight circle. Elias's voice came again, firm and calm. "Princess, they're jamming your systems. We'll lose communication soon. You need to move your flagship behind the asteroid belt on your right. My ship can draw them away." Lyra turned sharply. "You'll be outnumbered 10-1. He smiled faintly. "Wouldn't be the first time." Before she could argue, his signal cut out. The aurora's edge shot forward like a streak of light, weaving between enemy fire. Inside his ship, Elias tightened his grip on the controls. The sky outside exploded with red flashes as laser fire passed dangerously close. "Luma, divert all power to forward shields," he ordered. "Confirmed," replied the small drone calmly. "This is a low survival probability scenario." Elias chuckled. "You say that every time." He pulled the ship into a sharp roll, dodging 2 enemy blasts. One pirate ship tried to flank him, but he dropped below and released a flare drone, blinding their sensors. For every move, he stayed calm, focused. There was fear, yes, but it never reached his eyes. That was the human way. Feel fear and move anyway. Back on the royal ship, Lyra watched the radar helplessly as the human vessel danced among the pirates. Each second felt endless. "Commander," she said urgently, "we can't leave him there." "With respect, Your Highness," Arvin said. "He's buying us time. If we return, we'll lose the entire fleet." Lyra's heart tightened. Logic told her to stay, but something deeper, something human, refused. She turned to her pilot. "Set a course for the asteroid belt. But I'm taking a scout shuttle to assist the human." Arvin's eyes widened in shock. "Your Highness? That's too dangerous." She met his gaze firmly. "He risked his life for a stranger. I won't watch him die for me." And before anyone could stop her, she was gone. Her small royal shuttle sped into the chaos. The storm's glow lit her face as she guided the craft between debris and bursts of fire. "Elias," she called over the radio. "I'm coming to you." There was a brief crackle, then his calm voice replied, "Princess, I told you to stay safe." "And I told you," she said, gripping the controls, "that I decide my own safety." He couldn't help but laugh softly even as his ship dodged another attack. You really are full of surprises. Then let's surprise them together, she said. Working side by side, the Aurora's Edge and Lyra's shuttle moved like twin comets through the darkness. Elias targeted the pirate leader's vessel, firing precise bursts that disabled its engines. Lyra followed behind, using her shuttle's shields to protect his flank. The pirates began to scatter. They hadn't expected resistance from a human and a royal working together. 2 more ships incoming, Luma reported. On it, Elias said, spinning his ship around. Princess, cover the right side. Understood, she answered. Her voice was steady now, not the calm of royalty but the focus of a fighter. Together they cut through the enemy line. For every strike the pirates launched, the pair countered with precision and daring. Finally, the last pirate ship turned and fled into the storm. The silence that followed felt unreal. The stars slowly came back into view as the smoke cleared. Elias, Lyra said softly over the comm. We did it. Correction, he said with a smile. You did it, Princess. Nice flying, she laughed, a small real laugh that surprised even her. You sound proud. I am, he said honestly. When the fleet regrouped, the crew greeted them with stunned admiration. Even Commander Arvin bowed deeply to his princess. You have my respect, Your Highness, he said quietly. And to the human as well. Lyra smiled faintly. He earned it. The rescued officer, now recovering in the medbay, asked softly, Who saved us? Lyra answered, A man from Earth. The alien blinked, amazed. A human? Yes, she said, her voice warm. And one day I think the galaxy will remember that name. Later that night, the fleet rested in calm space. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport. Lyra stood alone on the observation deck, her hands folded behind her back. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Elias approaching. You should be resting, she said gently. I could say the same for you, he replied with a grin. They stood side by side, watching the slow dance of the stars. The silence between them was peaceful, not awkward. You saved my fleet, she said quietly. And you saved me, Elias shook his head. You didn't need saving, Princess. You saved yourself. You just needed a reason, she smiled. Maybe, but you reminded me what courage looks like. He looked out the window thoughtfully. You have plenty of that. You just hide it behind titles and duty. Lyra laughed softly. You speak boldly to a princess. Someone has to, he replied. Royalty needs honesty sometimes. For a moment she looked at him, not as a ruler but as a person. His eyes carried both strength and kindness. There was no arrogance, no fear, just the calm of someone who had seen darkness and still chosen to walk forward. Tell me something, Elias, she said. Why do humans keep fighting even when the odds are impossible? He smiled faintly. Because if we stop, we lose everything. Hope, love, the reason we exist. Every time we fight, we're not fighting to win. We're fighting to deserve to win. His words lingered in the quiet air. Lyra turned her gaze back to the stars. You speak as if every battle is personal. It is, he said simply. Every life matters. That's what makes us human. For a long while they said nothing. The stars glowed softly beyond the glass, and in that silence, understanding grew between them. A bridge between 2 worlds. At last, Lyra said, When we return to the Empire, I will speak for your people. They deserve to be seen as more than a small world. Elias smiled. Thank you, Princess. But remember, humans don't need crowns or thrones, just the chance to stand among the stars. She nodded slowly. Then that's what I'll give you. The next day, the fleet prepared for the journey home. The Nebra sector lay quiet behind them, the storm fading into peace. But something had changed, something no one could erase. The princess who once saw humanity as weak now understood their strength. And the human who came seeking respect had earned something greater, trust. As the ships began their flight back to the Empire, Elias looked out at the stars one last time. Luma, he said softly, mark this day in the log. For what purpose? Asked the drone. Because today, Elias said smiling, a human made a princess believe. The fleet returned to the Crystal Empire, cutting through the calm expanse of space. The golden towers of the city shone in the distance like beacons, welcoming the ships home. Inside the royal flagship, Princess Lyra stood at the observation window, watching the familiar skyline grow larger. She had seen courage in action, bravery in the smallest human gestures, and now she knew the truth. Humans were different. Elias Trent's ship floated nearby, its worn hull contrasting with the sleek Empire vessels. But it had carried more than one survivor through storms and attacks. That small, strong ship symbolized humanity itself. Fragile, yes, but unbroken. Lyra turned to face Elias. The Empire will not forget this. Captain Trent, your people have earned respect today. He smiled faintly. Your words honor us, Princess. But respect alone will not protect us. We need trust. You'll have it, she said confidently. And more than that, you'll have an ally. The Royal Council gathered shortly after their arrival. The room was massive. Walls made of reflective crystal, and high above, the sun of the city shone through, scattering rainbow light across the floor. Nobles from 6 sectors took their seats, whispering and glancing at the human who walked calmly beside the princess. Your Highness, Lord Callan said quietly. Are you certain about this? They are human. Small, fragile, and unpredictable. Why bring them here? Lyra raised her chin. Because they are not weak. Captain Trent and his people have shown courage, wisdom, and resilience. They have saved lives in ways we could not. The nobles murmured among themselves. Some scoffed, some frowned, and others looked curious. No one had expected a human to stand here speaking as an equal. Captain Trent, Lyra continued, turning to him. Will you speak for your people? Elias stepped forward, his posture calm and deliberate. He looked at every member of the council, never flinching under their judgmental stares. Members of the council, he began, I stand before you not as a conqueror, not as a threat, but as a representative of humanity. Our people are small, yes, but we have endured hardships no other race has faced. We have built civilizations from nothing. We have survived storms, enemies, and extinction itself, and yet we continue to rise. A noble whispered, beautiful words. But words cannot sway fleets or empires, Elias nodded. True, but actions can. Yesterday, humanity proved that courage is not measured by size, strength, or firepower. It is measured by the will to act when all seems lost. That is what we bring to the galaxy. He gestured toward the hologram display, showing the rescue of the Nebra sector officer, the human fleet moving through the storm, and the strategic maneuvers that saved both the Empire ships and his own. Do you see now? Elias asked, his voice calm but strong. We do not seek to replace the empires or claim your territories. We seek only to stand as equals, to help when we can, and to fight when we must. Humanity may be small, but it is unyielding. The council sat in stunned silence. Some could not hide their awe. Others tried to mask it, but even their eyes betrayed respect. Princess Lyra stepped forward. Council members, I have seen this courage firsthand. I have watched this man and his crew enter the storm, face the unknown, and return with life. They do not act recklessly, they act with purpose and heart, and that is why I propose an alliance between the Crystal Empire and Earth. A murmur went through the room. One of the oldest nobles, a being of luminous crystal named Valor, leaned forward. Your Highness, you speak with conviction, but this is unprecedented. Why trust humans? Lyra looked him directly in the eye. Because they trust in themselves, in each other, and in hope. That is more than any fleet or weapon can provide. Trust is earned by deeds, and they have earned mine. There was a long pause. Then another noble, smaller and nervous, whispered, And if we are wrong? You are not wrong, Elias said softly. We have faced worse than doubt and survived. We will not fail you or ourselves. The council voted. Slowly, deliberately, the majority approved the alliance. Cheers echoed through the chamber. Even the skeptics found themselves clapping, amazed at the bravery of the humans and the wisdom of their princess. Elias bowed respectfully. Thank you, Your Highness, and thank you, members of the council. Humanity will honor this trust, Princess Lyra smiled faintly. We have much to learn from each other. Let this be the start of something greater than any of us imagined. Later, in a quiet hall of the palace, Lyra and Elias walked side by side. The city lights reflected in their eyes, the stars above stretching endlessly. You did well today, she said softly. Your words, your actions, they made a difference. Elias shrugged slightly. I did what any human would do, Princess. Some would act faster, some slower, but all would act. We do not give up. She looked at him, admiration in her golden eyes. I once thought humans were fragile, foolish even. Now, I see strength in your people that even the Empire can learn from." He smiled faintly. "Strength is not just power. It is the courage to continue, even when no one believes in you, even when everything seems lost." Lyra nodded. "Then I suppose that makes you special?" "No," he said simply. "Just human. But thank you." They walked in silence for a while, each lost in thought. The city shimmered around them, but the stars above seemed brighter now, symbols of possibility, hope, and new beginnings. Over the next few weeks, the alliance between Earth and the Crystal Empire grew. Humans worked alongside the Empire's engineers, scouts, and explorers. Their methods were unusual, sometimes reckless, but they always brought results. One day, Lyra and Elias watched a demonstration together. A human scout ship executed maneuvers that the Empire's drones could not match, weaving between asteroid fields and magnetic storms effortlessly. "Remarkable," she whispered. "Even with all our technology, humans find ways to adapt." Elias nodded. "That's what we do. We survive, we adapt, and we keep moving forward." She turned to him, smiling. "Perhaps this alliance is just the beginning. Together we could face anything in the galaxy." He looked at her, quiet and steady. "Exactly. Because together, humans and the Empire are stronger than any storm, stronger than any threat. Courage is contagious, Princess. You've seen that now." She laughed softly. "Yes, I have." As the sun set over the floating city, casting golden light across the towers, Lyra stood once more on her balcony. The stars above reflected in her eyes, and she thought of the human who had changed everything in her life. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, yet for the first time she felt hope, not just for herself but for all the worlds around her. Humans had shown her that strength was not measured in size, power, or history. Strength came from courage, perseverance, and heart, and in that moment Princess Lyra understood the truth. Humanity was not a joke. Humanity was the future. Elias watched from his ship below, looking up at the princess's balcony. The city lights glimmered around him, but his eyes stayed on her. "You taught me something, Princess," he said softly. "Not about humans, but about courage, leadership, and hope." Lyra smiled faintly, a spark of pride in her eyes. "And you reminded me what it means to fight for something greater than oneself." For a moment, neither spoke. The galaxy stretched endlessly around them, full of possibilities. Then together, they turned back to the stars, humans and the Crystal Empire side by side, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. And in the quiet hum of space, one thought echoed clearly. No matter how small, courage can change the universe.